Welcome, fellow seekers of challenge and triumph, to the SufferSooner podcast. Join us on a journey where ordinary souls embark on extraordinary endeavors. From the relentless grind of gravel to the punishing gauntlet that is triathlon, we've tasted our fair share of suffering. So fellow endurance warriors, let's lace up our shoes, strap on our goggles, and dive headfirst into the challenge, knowing that with every step, stroke, and pedal forward, we grow stronger together.
All right, guys, welcome to episode 55. We're going to talk about the dark side of social media.
Nice.
So,
Seems like a really, wow, what a positive topic.
right, exactly.
way to just hit it. Yeah.
I think social media can be one of those things that you can either kind of gain energy or inspiration from, or it can take you down a dark rabbit hole of just not fun times.
Yeah, that sounds like you just described my last week.
Right. So,
well, I mean, the thing is this is pretty normal, right? You get you get off of a race event, and then, I think we both probably planned a recovery week.
Yep.
So when you have that extra time on your hands, you end up, what do? You kind of go through the Instagram and Strava and everything else out there, and you start looking around. And then YouTube, of course. So yesterday I did a ride, and there was a YouTube videos that were on there, and man, we'll get into it, but yeah.
kind of fired up.
Got all fired up, and then even before the show here, I was all salty about like different training plans and everything. So it's good stuff.
He was having a little meltdown, so I had to talk him off the ledge. So it's good.
Yeah.
So I have some news this week. I was invited down south to like Johnson County Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
To talk with Josh Wolf and Katie Renner, who we've had on the show before. They're starting a youth triathlon team, and so they're they got some USAT sponsorship behind it, and so they're going to be they have a spring session and a summer session. So if you know of any kids that want from 6 to 18 that talk about triathlon or want to try triathlon, this is definitely a great opportunity for them. For your kids to do something over the summer. What?
Start over.
What'd you do?
You got to fix your microphone here.
I like it.
You're like, every time I look at you, you got like this divider in your face.
I like it.
I was trying to hold a straight face. So like every time I look up at you, like,
I like it.
You're like a medieval warrior.
Yeah.
It's like
I like to hide behind it.
All right, so we can restart. I'm sorry.
All right, so
just start it back up from the. We can trim all that out.
Yeah.
So just start. Let's start from the welcome, and hit the intro real quick. We'll start from there.
Oh, you're gonna do it all over.
Yeah,
again.
just restart from the.
All right.
I couldn't. There we go.
There we go.
That's better.
Get it out of the way.
That's better.
All right, guys. Welcome to episode 55.
There we go.
Just coming in, talking about the dark side of social media.
Yeah, it's a real positive spin, isn't it?
I know,
I
right?
thought this was supposed to be a happy channel.
Yeah. So, we just, again, got done with racing and I look at social media quite a lot. I am a consumer of social media, and sometimes I can find it like inspiring, like what people are doing and what, athletes are doing or just average people are doing. And sometimes you can go down a deep, dark rabbit hole of just nothing, burgers all around the place.
Yeah, it's like my week last week.
Yeah.
I mean, just having that extra time from taking a recovery week and, spending more time on Instagram and YouTube and all of that. And I got pretty fired up. I mean, before the show here, I was like thrashing around like training plans and
he was
slamming on some different software platforms.
He was
like all fired up.
he was on the ledge. I had to talk him down. He was
Salty.
Like, he was a little salty
Yeah,
on some of the YouTube videos he was watching when I was training. So it can be one of those things that either fires you up or kind of discourages you. So
well, the other thing too is that you get to like you start questioning things. So I mean, we're gonna get into it because it can be as we said here, a blessing or a curse. Right. So before we get into that though, you got a little bit of news, right?
Yeah. So and then sorry. There we go. So I'm putting a link on the screen here. It's Johnson County. I met with Katie Renner and Josh Wolf. He coaches down there, the Wolfpack. Yeah. And Katie Renner we've had on here. They're trying to get a youth triathlon team going on for the summer and the spring and the summer. They're going to have 2 sessions. They're going to have a spring session and a summer session. And went and talked to them, and we're gonna talk them up and have them on the podcast. They're more than happy to come on anytime. Yeah. So we'll figure it out, have them come on, but it was just really good to talk with those guys about just we always talk about like getting more people into the sport and kind of how they do it, and what what they were talking about and what they got funding from USAT is to get more children, from the ages of 6 to 18 into the sport. Try to get, because, a lot of us feel that like triathlon and these endurance sports, they can change your life, really. We've talked about it ad nauseum before about just like all of life's problems don't really seem as big as riding, 200 miles of gravel in Kansas. Yeah. Like when you go like, oh, Debbie at work she's kind of irritating me, or Phil is being kind of a mean boss, and it's like, none of that really matters when you're like, I've spent 17 hours in the hot sun of Kansas.
No, for sure. I mean, you learn so much more about yourself, and that's one of the things we've talked a lot about here is. And you think about too, like how many times we say like, man, I wish we would have started this a lot earlier in life. And I think there's a lot that can be learned in your younger years by doing these types of challenges. And there's some lucky kids out there that are about to get some really good coaching.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Good.
So so I met with them, talked to them about it. Again, we'll have them on. Check out the link. If you have a kid, a kid that's you've talked about triathlon, and they're like, oh, that seems cool, but I could never do it. Like, let them know. Let them, find out, talk to their parents, all that kind of stuff. We're going to have some meet and greets and some other stuff going on throughout the spring and stuff. So, you'll find out more about this stuff. But if you want to get on the jump early, definitely just sign up for it and get your kid rolling. Who knows? They might be the next person to go to Kona and win it.
Well, and think about too, like, these kids are going to get really good habits early, and they, as they get older, if they maintain those habits, they're going to be phenomenal athletes. Yep. And a lot of folks don't start this stuff until their late 30s, early 40s, and maybe by the time they're 50 and 60, they're still stronger than they were when they were 30 or 40. Imagine if you had another 20-year jump on that. Yep. How strong you would be. It's a really good opportunity, and I think too, like we've talked a lot of the race directors around here about the sort of the problem of aging, the aging population attending these events, and now we've got folks here in the Kansas City area that actually want to do something about it. Yeah, and are finding a way to do it.
I was just super pumped that they were like, they thought of us, and like definitely this is stuff that we want to do for sure. Help out. There might be some other stuff coming of that, so. Yeah. Definitely want to stay tuned, and we're gonna try to do our best to help those guys out and foster the next generation of the sport, because like me and you, I told them all about the when we had that new guy next to us in Cowboy Up, and he was the first timer, and we were so pumped to have him there, and so hopefully we see him again next year, and
I hope so,
and we see him at future events. So so definitely check it out. We'll have more information as it comes. It's just getting off the ground right now, so we're gonna have Josh and Katie on here, and we'll talk to them.
Awesome. I can't wait. That's good stuff, man.
Yep. So all right, let's talk about the blessing and the curse of social media.
I mean, isn't this the obvious statement though? Like
Yeah.
social media in general, but I mean, when it applies to your training, it can. And how many times before a big event, a lot of times people like to get on the event's Facebook page or
Oh, yeah.
social media page, and like,
Triathlon is the worst for
what's
that.
the water temperature? And
Yeah,
all
they
this kind of
start
stuff.
asking it like 3 weeks before, so they
Right.
can like become some kind of hydrodynamicist of like what the temperature is going to be, and like
Yeah.
what, you know, and how many times have we like, you know, looked at the weather going into a race and stuff like that. I know it's
Yeah.
not social media, it's just weather, but like you have people going like, well, if it's going to rain, like, should I get out the mud tires? Is it going to be mud bound again? And it's like, no, it's not going to be like that. It's a different course. Like, but you can see how like, you know, some people use social media, and, you know, and we all call them trolls or whatever, but a lot of times they just kind of like to stir it up. I mean, that's kind of people's personalities,
Right.
And they, you know, and I find like the closer I get to the race event, the less I look at the social media pages,
Yeah.
because I get kind of sucked in sometimes. So
Yeah. So like that's the side of it for like a specific event, and we see it now with Unbound, right? Where there's a page out there, and you've already got people asking the questions about the tires and
Yep.
you know, what about this, what about that, and it's great. It can be a great forum to exchange the info, and that's all well and good. But also just social media in general, you get so many people that want to be these influencers, and I say want to be because I really wonder, like, what are these folks, like, what's their goal with
Right.
with their content,
Right.
you know, and you know, they amass these followings, and then it's like, well, what are people actually taking out of it? And so you mentioned I stumbled into some YouTube videos yesterday, and I won't rat out the channel, but there was this person on YouTube. They have a decent subscription base. I mean, they're definitely monetizing YouTube, and that's a good thing. I mean, more power to them. But they were kind of giving their, you know, their story of their journey through cycling. And here's somebody who went from virtually unknown, hadn't really ridden a bike or rode bikes, and you know, until like 2020, I want to say.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they turn into a state road racing champion, and you're like, in a couple of years, in like 3 years, that seems, I mean, wow, that's a really good story.
Yeah.
It's also not very normal, right? Like, something seems odd about that. Like, how do you go from zero to the champion in a 3-year window? I don't know. And you did this all on your own without coaching? Like, you did this
Right.
with the training platform and that's it? Like, I don't know. There's something didn't quite add up for the whole story. And it kind of got me thinking, like, well, I mean, it's great. I love hearing the positive side of it, but what I feel bad about is people that go onto these channels and they think, oh, if I just do what this person did, then it's gonna make me better somehow.
Yeah.
And
I
they'll
can
probably
be
get
pro
better.
in 3 years.
Right.
Like,
Or,
but
or
the thing
cat,
is,
Cat 3 in 3 years.
yeah,
Like,
the thing that I always look at is, and from a coaching perspective too, is like people like that, they don't just come out of nowhere. So like he was probably an athlete in some
Yeah.
other sport,
yeah.
just to be able, you know, or I don't know, like it's really hard for somebody like that can go from state championship to, I think he finished really high up in the Unbound 200, like, and in a course of a couple of years, the only way that usually happens is because they come from a different sport. So maybe he was a collegiate swimmer, collegiate runner,
yeah.
but that's the part that I don't like on social media, is because they don't tell you that part.
Right.
So they don't tell you like, oh, I was a like semi-professional baseball player. And it's like, and then I started cycling. Well, that's a lot different than somebody who's, you know, I came from the couch.
Right.
And then, or I played, you know, like I played high school soccer or
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
for me, like
Right.
that's what I did. I played high school soccer, and then I mountain biked,
In your spare time.
in my
Yeah.
spare time. And yeah, like that's not gifted genetics or anything like that. Like I wasn't like D1 soccer player. I was high school JV soccer player. Like I don't think I would make the C team now because the kids are so much better.
Yeah.
But you know, like they don't tell you that from the start. Like they just go like, oh no, look at what I've accomplished in this specific thing, you know. And that's what I say, like, to always kind of look out for is like the ones that are telling you that like, oh, I'm an anomaly.
Anomaly.
Those are the
Gifted
ones.
speaker.
Yeah, yeah. I can't speak at all, and here I am doing a podcast. Those guys like definitely like you kind of want to always look at with a grain of salt. But the problem is like they play the game of social media, and people go like, well, they always want that fast thing.
That's
like,
it. They want the easy button.
I want 3 years of putting my blood,
sweat, and tears.
Into this podcast or into this sport, and the next thing I know, I'm the top dog.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, I just look at it and just go, okay. But
yeah, I think the thing that drives me a little crazy is just it's more about telling the story than it is about the like. I want to hear the story, and I'm not hating this. This is the other thing. I'm not hating on the guy's progress or his channel or anything like that, because more power to him. I mean, number one, congratulations, because I know that guy put in a ton of hard work to whatever leaps and bounds he made. Took a ton of hard work. Nobody does that without putting hard work in.
Yeah,
you don't win a state championship.
You don't get to a state championship just by showing up.
But that's the problem though. Like if you just watch the channel, it comes off like, oh, if not even that channel. If I just watch social media influencers in general, it's like, oh, if I just do these simple hacks, like all of a sudden my FTP is going to go. And that's the other thing that's driving me crazy right now. And this is what kind of got me on the tangent this morning, is all these videos are going on about raise your FTP with this simple hack. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I get it. These are tips that can help you with increasing your FTP. But here's the other thing. What they're not telling you. See, here's the thing. It's more about what they're not telling you as much as what they are telling you, because what they're not telling you is, well, a big component of your FTP is not just the power number, but your weight also. Yep. And so just losing weight will increase your power to weight, which is really the measure of your FTP, not just the power side of that equation. And so people are kind of led down these paths of like, oh, I have to do these 6 things, and all of a sudden results just magically happen. And it's like, I wish it happened that way, but the reality is there's no substitute for the hard work it takes.
No, I mean, if anything, from watching that guy's YouTubes, he does preach some stuff like consistency, which is huge. Like
number one,
I think if you, and I'm with you with I mean, you look at social media now and it's just like, I raised my FTP by 100 watts by doing, whatever, Russian burpees or whatever. Like, I don't even think that's a thing, but whatever, we'll make it up. Like it's like it's like, oh, I ate fried chicken for 3 weeks and my FTP is now 20 watts better. It's like, it's all this just, like this quick fix stuff. And it's like, no, it's, if you look at like the person that we're talking about on the YouTube, this guy rode his bike like 300 miles a week
for several weeks,
for many weeks.
Not structured.
Not structured.
Just rode.
And then the first part of his training cycle, he wasn't doing anything structured, but he was riding consistently, like probably 5 to 6 times a week.
Right. Which is awesome.
Which is huge. Yeah. Which is way more than most,
just average people.
People can put in. So like, he made huge gains because he was consistent, not because he did anything kind of special. Yeah. And I think that's the part that like he's not talking about. Yeah. Like the fact that he had to be that consistent, that's the true story, not the I followed, MacGyver's super great training plan and now I'm able to, wire a bomb out of a Coke can and my FTP is 350 watts.
Yeah. Yeah, I think again, it's hard to have this kind of discussion without like feeling like you're being negative on these channels, because again, I'm not. And these are phenomenal athletes and they deserve all the credit. I just think like why make it more about the story you're telling, and why don't you just like make it about like this is like there's some real information here that can help people out. Mm-hmm. Like. It'd be really interesting. Like,
but those don't get the clicks, Danny.
So that's
we
what
need
it comes
the
down
clicks.
to. That's exactly it.
And that's the other part, right? Yeah. Like, if I guess, I was talking to my friend Ryan. He does a podcast or a YouTube video or YouTube thing on YouTube. Oh my gosh, I can't even talk today. I'm sorry. Yeah. He's got a YouTube channel. It's called Simplify, about financial financial independence. And he is, he's like, oh, I need to get more clicks and more views. And I'm like, well, you can do that by just being really kind of
like edgy,
yeah. Right? Like we could start talking about like what grinds our gears, or like, I don't know. We could start talking about all sorts of stuff, and get more clicks and views.
Yeah.
But I think it does a disservice to us, and then it does a disservice, like I was telling him, it does a disservice when you start chasing the clicks and the views.
Right.
And it's more about the process, the storytelling. Like I want people to like I'm this guy that messes up words and talks weird. Like I'm this guy in real life.
Yeah, like that's not going to edit out.
We're not going to edit it out. It's
right.
all in here, right?
Yeah.
That's the part that I want like people to know and like. And I get it. Like I'm not for everybody, and that's the other part about social media too, is like it's not for everybody.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like, what's the purpose of the channel, and what's the purpose of doing the content? And the purpose, in my mind, should be about, you want to convey the information in a way that's helpful to people. But what tends to happen is you set these people up with these false expectations, like, oh, if I just do these 1 to n number of things, and I do it in this order, and I stick my tongue out and hold my thumb in the air the right way, then I might get the results that this person had. And it's like, yeah, that's not really how the world works, and there's never a guarantee in these things.
Right.
And the reality too is like, they're leaving out the best part of the story. Like in my mind, you're leaving out the part about all the hard work. Because here's the problem: most people, like you started to say it earlier, they want the easy button. They don't want to. They don't want to know how much hard work goes into it.
They're like, they don't want to know how many, like, when you talk to pro athletes and the stuff that when they say that they're going to retire and they don't have to train anymore, they're like, the first thing I'm going to do is spend time with my family, because it's like they sacrifice so much to do their sport that their family suffer.
Right.
Like there's weddings that people have missed out on. Pros or high level amateurs. You miss out on, like, if it's the same, if it's like my kid's graduation, if it's the same weekend as Unbound, like I have a very hard decision to make, right?
Yeah.
Like if I'm getting paid to race and I don't show up to that race, then I'm not getting paid, right? And so it's like, do you miss out on a kid's graduation or your cousin's graduation or something like that because you're out racing, or do you make those calls? And like when your livelihood's based on racing and getting results and stuff like that, it's a hard decision for them to make,
right?
And so that's why they come back to like that, I'm going to spend more time with family and stuff.
And I think another thing about the reason we wanted to cover this topic today is we're about 15 weeks out from Unbound. We're about 10 or so weeks out from Open Range, and then so gravel season is not that far away. We're kind of getting into the build cycle. And what tends to happen is, like, we came off of the marathon or the half marathon training, and then you've got I'm like starting to look at my bike schedule and my bike plan, and then you see videos like what this guy has, and it starts making you like just start questioning things like, well, maybe I need to augment my plan a certain way, and well, this guy did these things, and then, well, what if I do that? And you start comparing, right? And then that just starts to tear down the confidence. Like, no, I put this plan together, or I purchased a plan. Like, actually, the what I mentioned this last week, I bought a plan. I have Trainer Road, and I'm using some combination of those two things, plus mixing in all the races. So, like, you can't just use the cookie cutter plans that people have. And this is why we talk about coaching so much. I guarantee you, this person that we were just referring to, they didn't do all this without a coach.
Right.
Like, there's no way, you cannot convince me that they just logged into Trainer Road and followed Trainer Road and didn't do anything else and won a state championship.
Right.
Like, that doesn't, I'm sorry, I'm not buying that story.
Yeah, I'm not buying what you're selling, for sure.
Right. And I'm not saying Trainer Road can't help you with those goals.
Right, exactly.
It can't be it can certainly be a foundation, and you build off of the foundation, but I'm not convinced that you just sort of found your way and look at there, I stumbled my way into a podium on a state championship. Yeah. It doesn't work that way. So I think part of the challenge here is you get caught up in like sort of the hype of things, and, and that's like, you don't want to get caught believing into those things and then start questioning, because the one thing you have to do is you have to be confident and trusting in the plan that you have.
Yeah. I mean, the best plan, I always tell, athletes, whether they're my athletes or they're somebody else's athletes, it's basically whatever plan that you believe in is the correct plan for you. Like whatever plan that you look at and you go like, I'm all in. I'm
Right.
all in
All
on
the
this
chips
plan.
are in.
All the
That's
chips
right.
are in. I'm going ham on this plan. That is going to be that's your plan. That's the
Yeah.
perfect plan for you.
Yeah.
Because if you're like what you were saying, you like bring in a little doubt and you're like, I don't know if this plan is going to work. Like, and we're seeing it, and we're using Trainer Road as an example, but I mean, there's other training platforms out there too. But if we don't have a full 100% confidence in Trainer Road getting us ready for Unbound, then we're going to start looking around going like, I don't,
Yeah.
this is some other stuff. And I used to do this a lot with Strava. Strava's the worst for social media for me.
Yeah.
So like, especially in the beginning when it first came out, I would compare myself to everybody else and what they were doing. So I would know like let's say, I knew Danny was having a race, we were doing the same race, and then I would sit there and look at his training and be like, well, he's doing VO2 max on Tuesdays.
Yep.
Maybe I should do VO2 max on Tuesdays too.
Yeah.
And like, maybe that he knows something I don't. And you see in the pros too. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I watched a Lionel Sanders video, and he was talking about his training plan. And then like, he's like, yeah, you look at all these top level pros, and he's like, then you just start doing whatever they're doing, because obviously it's working. And like, yeah, it's working for them.
But it's also one piece of a bigger puzzle.
Exactly.
And it's like, you don't know all the other things that are going into it. One of the biggest contributors to a successful plan also is the recovery side of the plan.
Yep.
So you never have visibility. You have visibility to the work side of the plan because it's in Strava and you can do that comparison, but you never have visibility into the recovery side because you have no idea what these people are doing. I mean, they could be freaking, not saying the pros, but like, they could be juicing up on something and you have no idea. Like,
right.
How are they able to put in 400 miles a week? I don't know, but that's what they're doing. So that's what I have to do. And it's like, no, don't get caught in that sort of hype side of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then, of course, there's always the supplements. The supplement market is the hugest one, right? Like,
Yeah.
We talk about AG1, they do hydrogen water, like all that kind of stuff. The thing is there's power in placebo for sure. So if you believe that AG1 and hydrogen water and whatever thing that you're taking, if you believe that fish oil pills that you're taking from Costco are the bee's knees and those are going to work for you, they're probably going to work for you.
Right.
Because you believe it so hard.
Yeah. So on the supplement side, real quick, we're a little on a tangent here, but on the supplement side, it's actually a very good point you bring up because almost every podcast out there or influencer that has any following, almost every one of them has one of these sponsorships. Either it's an AG1 sponsorship, an Element Salts, sponsorship, the feed, things like that. And there's nothing wrong with any of these brands. Like, I've got no issue with any of them. And if they want to sponsor us, we're happy to have that kind of conversation.
Exactly.
And we'll be very transparent about that. That's not the case. But the reality is I wonder how many of those people actually believe in the product versus are just taking the money. And I don't blame you for taking the money.
Right.
But like, I'd really be curious how many people actually think it works. And then you kind of get into the sort of the not mass marketed supplements, like specific supplements, like like maybe you take a little extra magnesium, like it's just a mineral, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe you take a calcium supplement, or things that aren't mass marketed but have proven effectiveness for a specific condition.
Right. Or like creatine or something like
Creatine's,
that.
I mean, so how long? Yeah, and creatine. So I can speak to that one because I started hitting creatine consistently about a year ago.
Yeah.
And I can tell when I'm not taking it. If I cut off creatine for a couple of weeks, like I can actually tell in my workouts like a difference. And it's funny because creatine was always thought as like a muscle for bodybuilders and for gaining muscle, but it's actually shown like it has effects for endurance as well. Yeah. And so,
there's a lot of studies out there, like science-backed studies. And the thing is like if a supplement's good, you probably don't need to see the marketing for it.
Well, and that's just it. So creatine, when creatine first came out, there were a few select distributors and brands.
Yeah.
But then it became a commodity.
Yep.
Right. And so now it's like, it works because you can just go and find infinite number of brands of this stuff. And they also sell you their other premium supplements, but that one is the same price by almost everybody.
Yep.
There's not really any variance. It's just they offer it because they have to, because it's everybody's base. And so something like that, I go, yeah, I can just go buy creatine. You know, it works, and I'm not subject to the marketing and the hype of it.
Yeah.
And I think that creatine's a really good example, but there aren't many of those out there.
No.
Because you just don't hear about them.
Right.
And that's part of the problem. So again, it goes back to, you don't know what all these people are doing as part of their recovery regimen or part of their nutrition or supplement. Like, that's the other thing. Last time I checked, nobody publishes what their diet was.
Right.
You know?
Well, I mean,
So-
you do get the like, oh, this is what I've eaten in a day. And it's like, they'll show you like what they're doing, like on a, 10-hour training day, and they're eating like 6,000 calories. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, that's one day out of the week. It's
Right.
not like what you eat on a generic Tuesday.
Right.
Like when you're just training, like, again, that kind of stuff is, for clicks and views and just that kind of, but like you were saying, like, I think there's more to the story that people don't tell. And that's just the sacrifices that they made to get to the point of where they are, what they basically were trying to do, as far as like, did they change their nutrition to lose weight? And then, how did they keep their muscle mass on? Like, there's all that kind of stuff that, the influencers from point A when they started to point B, where you're clicking on the video of how they gained their FTP, like, you're not hearing what happened in between. Like, what was the step, you hear the steps of like, oh, I just started taking this supplement, and then, I'm magically so much better. And it's like, it's not that cut and dry. There's more of a story there.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you have to do when you're, when you're looking at these influencers and stuff, is trying to dive down into, okay, did they really come out of nowhere, or
Right.
were they doing something that was a little bit more regimented? Were they having outside help, like that kind of stuff? Because are they not mentioning that kind of stuff?
Right. Well, and then I think, so take somebody that listens to these, whether it be a podcast, a YouTube channel, Instagram, Strava, whatever, and they think they're following. So like, they think that they're taking the necessary steps to get the gains that their favorite, actor or influencer has. And it's like, then they don't get it. They've been misled. And it's like, what happens next? Like, then they start comparing themselves, like, where did I fail? And then they like start going down their own dark spot.
Yeah.
And it's like, it leads to what? A chance of a burnout, a chance of somebody's like, you know what? F this, I don't want to do it anymore. So those kinds of, like, it's just really negative fast, because you start comparing yourself, and you start, that whole comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And you just start like, well, why am I not doing, like, Travis did it this way? Why can't I? And it's like, and then as a coach, I know you've had this in the past, where you run across athletes who maybe they've got friends that follow a different type of plan or something.
Yep.
And they think that if I just follow these 6 steps, I'm going to get whatever result. Like, it's all written in a textbook, and it's the law. Like, if you just do these 6 things, you're guaranteed a 10% increase. And it's like, it doesn't work that way.
No.
Like, your body is not a robot. You're
Yeah.
not programmed here.
I mean, we have, I have multiple athletes that kind of do that, and they're like, well, last year we were doing this. I was like, well, last year you were a different person.
Yeah.
3 months from now, you're going to be a different person.
That's right.
Like, you're constantly changing and adapting, and the stimulus that you used last year to get your result may not be what you need this year,
Right.
or it may be what you need this year. I know athletes that just do the same plan over and over, and then
Yeah.
they wonder why they get just a little bit better, but not, big amounts better, where they could be a lot better.
Right. Yeah. I get skeptical of, the folks on these channels and Instagram and all that just sort of push the, if you only do this, if a story starts out with that type of a,
If
framework,
you would only make these changes,
Yeah.
you'll be just like me.
right, click below to find out.
Yeah.
Okay. As soon as it gets to the path of click below to find out, you're just being played for a click,
Right.
and you're just an engagement. You're just
Yeah.
engagement farming now.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think that's, I think our generation has a lot of harder time with it. My kids are like savvy with this stuff, and
Yeah.
I'm sure your kids are too. They're like, whatever,
Yeah. Scroll on past.
yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
So, but I think with, us with coming before the internet, and then having the internet, and then
Yeah.
social media blowing up and stuff, now we're just like, I think we tend to give people the benefit of the doubt and always think that they're super genuine. And so we're like, oh, maybe if I do make these dietary changes and I only eat, Twinkies and fried chicken, I'll be amazing, like.
Did you get that off South Park?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's
So-
Cartman's path. Yeah. Cartman's
Yeah,
path.
but it's like there's what do they call it? Media literacy, right? Like you also have to do a little bit more effort, I think, when especially if you're looking at like changing your plan or adopting their plan that they're trying to sell you or they're trying to get you to buy in on,
Right.
or the supplement that they're trying to like get you to, endorse or whatever. I'm not saying like, AG1, hydrogen water, all that stuff. Personally, I'm not a big fan of it, but like if you take it and you think it does something for you, then keep taking it.
Yeah.
Like I'm not here to, sway you any other way than like we're in this thing to try to make the community better.
Yeah.
And so like my feeling is like, as long as we're, making the community better, then, or getting more information out there, then, it's very transparent of what we're trying to do with our social media and our podcast and stuff. Just make sure that like when you're looking at, Jimmy's, top 5 results to boost your FTP by 100 watts, that you're kind of just doing a little bit more than just clicking on it and going, oh, I should just do these 5 things.
Well, there's a lot of times in those types of lists, there actually are 5 good pieces of advice.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong again with taking the advice. I just think that, you talk about kind of what we're in it for. And I think that's exactly it. It's like, I'm in it to tell like, what's the real story? Like, I know people don't want to hear that if you want to ride fast, you have to ride more.
Yep.
Right. If you want to run fast, you have to run more. And then you have to do those hard intervals. Like there's just no way around it. And people don't want to hear that. They think that there's this hack out there that you just rewire your system and it just all of a sudden out of nowhere you can, run a 5-minute mile. Like, no, it doesn't work. I wish it worked that way. It doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think just being very real about and transparent about the amount of suffering it takes to truly improve, especially if you're not genetically gifted or you weren't. And this is why we kind of tie back to the news of the day about the youth tri team, because they have an opportunity to get involved in this stuff early on. And they will be that generation where it's like, it kind of came easy to them because it's all they know. Their bodies are already, that's like what their bodies know for how many years of training. And it will look like it comes easy to them, even though it didn't. It just took years.
It never gets any easier. Just go faster.
That's right. Yeah.
So, and the thing is like most principles, like you look at like, training from GCN, you look at your guy that on the YouTube, you look at us, the training principles are kind of all the same,
right.
Eat better, be consistent, get good sleep.
Yeah.
Like if you're doing, the majority of the things right, like you'll start seeing improvement.
Right.
Hit the weights, that kind of stuff. You're gonna start seeing improvement. There's no easy button other than just doing it. So
I was totally unrelated to cycling, triathlon, but so I had a 2-hour training ride yesterday. It's supposed to be 3. I cut it to 2, just ran out of time. And, again, just we're kind of in that lull in between before the next block starts up. So I only had a couple hours, and that's what I used to do my workout. And so, I kind of stumbled into YouTube was just playing right in the background. I didn't really select too much. And
the YouTube algorithm was at work.
I know, it's scary. But so I started off with that one channel I started off with here. And don't get me wrong, the guy has a really good, he's a good channel. Again, I'm not trying to bash on him. It's just, I just think I'm not sitting here trying to criticize him or tell him how to run his channel. It's got more followers than us. But the way I look at it is like, I think he's not telling the story that's actually a better story. Yeah,
he's missing an opportunity.
And it doesn't, and these guys don't, like, that's the thing. Like, the story tells itself.
Yep.
Like the story is the hard work. And so where I'm going with that is YouTube pulled up another video, and it's this younger guy, he's probably in his 20s, if I had to guess, climb Mount Everest.
Nice.
So he filmed with his GoPro or whatever, he filmed his 42-day Mount Everest journey. And so the video that happened to play was Summit Day. And so that caught my interest. And why did it catch my interest? It had no background music. It was him with his live audio of the recording climbing from base camp to the summit. And then he would occasionally come in, like on a mic like this, come in over the top and just kind of give context to the situation, like what they were dealing with. They started their climb from base camp at like midnight.
Yep.
And they were 2 hours up the trail, and you could see off in the distance, you could see the trail of headlamps going up to the summit.
Yeah, the line
and
of people.
Yeah, and it actually was not that busy of a day, but just those were people that started earlier.
Yep.
And long and short of it is he summited. It was obviously a very emotional experience, and then had to rush back down because once you summit, you get the heck out of there.
Yeah, you're done.
You're done.
It's coming down.
And he's talking about how the climb down was actually the hardest part of the whole thing because it was at such a breakneck pace.
Yep.
His Sherpa was like doing what a Sherpa should do, get him off the mountain because you never know when weather's going to change up there.
Yeah.
But anyway, he told it was just a great story, and the chronologing of the telling of the story of just going from base camp to summit. Then he had the rest of his channel was like, how did I train for it? And like, what did I have to do? And here's all the number of ways I almost died in training, like, and all that kind of stuff. And it's really good. Now, I didn't watch the whole channel, but it did play a couple more videos I thought it was really interesting because he told the story about, I went and trained on these other mountains and I almost died. Like we had there were lightning storms all around and they got caught, It's like, because how many people probably sit there and go, yeah, that sounds, climbing Mount Everest is something like a lot of people would say, oh no, you'll never catch me doing that. But that's like, there's like, name a more prominent accomplishment than that.
Right. Exactly.
And it's all, now it's kind of at the point, like, is it watered down to the point where it's like basically just a walk in the park, relatively speaking, compared to the people that did it 30, 40 years ago? Probably, but it's still an amazing accomplishment. And there's no guarantee in it, right? How many people didn't make it back? So, but I think it's just really refreshing to see a channel that had a really good story and talked about how much work it took to make that happen. And it wasn't hype. It wasn't a bunch of background music. It wasn't a bunch of, cut up shorts to make it look like, oh my gosh, these 3 hacks to climb Mount Everest.
Right. Exactly.
It wasn't like that. And I think it just brings a certain realism to it. And I think that's what's kind of missing in the social media space around, especially gravel cycling, because I feel like gravel cycling has been subjected to a lot more commercialization. And then with that is this whole social media thing, and it creates this sort of atmosphere like, like gravel cycling could be reduced down to these 10 hacks.
Right.
And
Exactly.
It's just not that way.
Yeah.
Really isn't.
Well, I think you point out something too. Like, it's one of the good things about social media is like that kind of stuff is inspiring because you're like, oh, that guy worked hard and he accomplished his goal. Yeah. I can work hard and accomplish my goal too, whatever that is, And I think that's the type of stories I think that resonate more than the clickbaity stuff. Unfortunately, the clickbaity stuff is the stuff that gets the following because everybody wants the easy button. And,
for sure.
And so like, I find, that type of stuff where you're talking about somebody's inspirational, journey to their goal, I think that's the part of the story that, I think, that's the best part of social media is you don't get to hear like that part of the story, you get, you think about it, if it was going to be a headline for like a local news outlet or something like that, it's like 26-year-old climbs Mount Everest and is the, from, let's say Wichita, Kansas or whatever. Yeah. And it's like, they're not going to go into all the months and the training and stuff. They're just going to go like, what was it like when you summited? Like, what was, it's just like, what was it
Fast
like?
Forward to the,
what was it like when you accomplished your goal? Well, it was great because I accomplished my goal. Like, of course, like, no, like the story is everything that led up to it. The accomplishing of the goal, that's the icing on the cake. Yeah. And so that's the meat of the story that I think like when you do social media right, like the people that I follow and you probably follow too are the people that tell those stories of how hard it is sometimes. Yeah.
Well, it goes back. There's that sort of core thing. It's like everybody wants the champion's trophy, but they don't want to put the champion's work in. Yeah. And it's the same thing. Like social media, it's like they just want to show you the trophy that they have, but they don't really tell you the story of what it took to get it. And gosh dang, I just think that's the piece that's missing. Yep. I think because I think the more you sort of normalize how hard these things are and you normalize the fact that hard work is inevitable if you want to be successful in whatever it is you do, hard work is inevitable. Now you may not think it's hard work because it's something you enjoy doing. So that's the other thing. It's about perspective too. Like a lot of these guys, like they'll put in the hours and hours and hours of threshold work and hard VO2 max efforts and these long endurance days, but it doesn't feel like hard. I mean, it's hard work, but it doesn't feel like they enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a part of it too. Is like, you know, normalize that a little bit, because how many people do we see that are just trying to get into this thing, and the first thing they think about is, oh, I don't want to spend 10 hours on a bike. And it's like, you don't think of it that way.
The first thing I always get, well, how long does that take you? And I'm like, well, last time it took me like 15 hours or 14 hours. They're like, I couldn't even ride my bike for 2 hours. And I'm like, I'm not saying that you have to go out tomorrow and ride your bike for 14 hours. Like, you just start by riding what you can ride. And the next thing you know, if you like it and enjoy it, you're going to be out there for 14 hours and not even think about it.
It's just like, and I'll just make this very personal for me. It's like swimming. Like when I thought about doing Ironman, like, I don't want to swim 2.4 miles. Are you kidding me? I don't want anything to do with that. I didn't even want to swim 100 yards, let alone 2.4 miles. And I think that's the thing. It's like, but it took a lot of laps in the pool before I finally figured out, you know what, like, you know, 2K ain't that bad.
Yeah.
As long as it's not bad.
It's not bad.
I mean,
you're like 3K set. That's not bad.
It's not terrible. I mean,
4K. Well, that's getting a little
getting
long. It's a long time to be in the pool, an hour and a half of swimming. But you get, but you didn't start out swimming. You're like, okay, so Ironman, I have to swim 2.4 miles. All right, so I'm going to jump in the pool tomorrow and swim 2.4 and see what happens.
Yeah, you'll sink to the bottom at some point.
You'll be the lifeguard's worst nightmare.
Yeah.
Like, so it just starts off at, like, you know, in small chunks, and maybe you get to, you know, maybe you put in this work and you find something that you really love. Like, maybe you love swimming so much that you become a really great endurance swimmer, and you're swimming miles and miles. So, that, I think that's the best thing about social media, is it can really inspire you to do stuff differently. Yeah. You know, or try something that you would never try, you know, especially if you're like, well, there's no mountains in Wichita, Kansas, but I want to try to climb Everest. You're like, man, get after it. You can, if there's a will, there's a way, man. Right? You just get after it. And, you know, that's what, you know, people see with the Unbound and all that stuff. And if you get away from the trolls of the internet telling you that you can ride it on 28C tires and, you know, all that other stuff, you can have the goal of doing it, and you put in the work, and then you'll succeed.
Exactly.
But again, I think the social media platforms that try to tell you the whole story of how hard it is and how what it takes, and there's not the quick fix of being able to ride 200 miles. There's no quick way to ride 200 miles other than to suffer sooner.
Yeah, that's the truth. Yeah. I mean, but you have these 3 hacks, Travis. I do 3 hacks. Just click below, everybody. Just click below.
Everybody, just click below. Sign up for my coaching plan. No, I wouldn't do that. But the thing is like, you know, it's just principles of how to get to where you want to go. It just, you know, if the goal seems too big, you know, you just kind of break it down into smaller chunks, and eventually you'll get there.
So, not to keep stretching the topic out, but what about somebody like a Goggins?
Yeah, so that's what I think about when you talk about like inspirational or like going like full on. Like, Goggins is Goggins, right? Like, I've read his books. I follow his, you know, I listen to his podcast when he's on there. I follow his Instagram and stuff like that. He's got a lot of interesting, good stuff to say. He's very motivational when I feel like I'm just kind of lounging around and being kind of lazy. I see a Goggins thing turn up, and I'm like, all right, well, time to go lace up my running shoes.
Yeah, I think, and I know he's not, you know, not for everybody, right? But you know, there's no question where he stands. Like, he doesn't sugarcoat much of anything, and he sure as heck doesn't glamorize. Like, everything about what he puts out content wise is about how hard the work is. Yep. And I think that's what gravitates, at least that's why I gravitate to it, because like, that's a very authentic story.
Yeah, I mean, the guy ran his knees into the ground, bone on bone, grinding. Still, like, his orthopedic surgeon was like, I don't understand how you could even walk in here, let alone run hundreds of miles. Like, that type of stuff. Like, you know, he's a very highly motivated person, or disciplined, whatever you want to call it.
All the above. Yeah.
He wants to do these things, and he won't stop at not doing them. And I think that's where you can draw the inspiration. I'm not saying you should go out and be like Goggins. Like,
well, that's the thing. Like, I mean, I think he even tells you, like, I probably wouldn't follow my training advice.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, his training advice got him to where he is, you know,
Right.
and there aren't many
and it
people,
works for him.
right?
And there's many people who have tried to do the Goggins training plan, or whatever they thought was the Goggins training plan, and have failed and
I do
burned
like
out
it.
and
I do like
crashed
it
out.
when people try to join him for a workout and he shows them what it's really like. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
It's
always
like, oh,
good.
we're not leaving till I do 100 pull-ups. I
Right.
can only do 4.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
So,
So, like, again, use social media to inspire you. And if you find that you're being overly negative in that space, then turn it off, turn it away.
yeah.
Like,
So that's what I ended up doing. Like I just, that's why I don't spend a lot of time on it anyway.
Yeah.
I just don't, but, it's really hard. Like I'm a big fan of, I got to have like authentic content.
yeah.
I'm not a fan of this. I said this on the last show. Marketing is like something I just despise. I understand it's a necessity and I understand why it's, you know, important and, you know, commercialization and everything. But I just have to have things that are authentic, and content is part of that, you know? And so when I stumble across those channels, I do quickly scroll past them, but like yesterday I was sort of a captive audience. Cause like, what else am I going to watch?
Yeah. What are you, I'm just going to,
You know.
I'm going to suffer through this and watch whatever's playing.
Right.
So.
And that's okay. Like there's nothing, I mean, you got to consume some of that stuff too. But, I mean, again, I go back to that, and I hate to just single this one person out. It's just the recent example. But again, great content, great story, by the way. Just feels like you're only telling one side of it.
Yeah.
And that's where I kind of get sideways with it. But anyway, so yeah, hopefully this is entertaining for folks. We got a little bit of rapid fire though.
Yeah,
We're up for that.
definitely.
Yeah. So, and this is all kind of in the zone of, social media and its influence. And ChatGPT is going to take us more down the path of like sort of how, different companies are using influencers in general. So here's one here. So Gravel was built primarily on like community adventure and all that sort of thing. But now you get all these influencers that are involved in Gravel, and, you know, there's sponsorships where it's like pay to play schemes, and corporations have, you know, dug their way into this. And there's always,
we'll have our gripes with Gravel episode probably pretty soon.
But the question here is are we watching the soul of the sport get sold off post by post?
Well, I think the other part to that is like, I follow some gravel podcasters and stuff, but I think there's, gravel is such a niche. It's like 0.1% of the 1% of the population that ride bikes.
Yeah.
Like, it's very, very
Still
small.
Yeah.
And so I think that, yes, I think what Lifetime has done with the series that they're running is kind of commercialized gravel.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just in America and in general, I think the appetite for other sports is so high that you can't really crush it. You know,
Yeah.
I think most people just they'll do the Unbound 200 and just kind of like, that's my Everest, and I'm done.
Yeah.
Or I'll go and do Leadville 100. That's my Everest. I'm done.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need to, you know, but I think the influencers, again, do we make content for Unbound so that we can get clicks and likes and respond? Yeah, we're gonna post our Unbound stuff because people want to hear about it. And again, to think about it, you have an event that draws people from all over the world, and it's a time for us and content creators to make content about one of the biggest things that happens in Emporia, Kansas. It's the population of like what, a couple thousand.
Well, it's the biggest event of its type in the world. You know, it's the key, like you said, and it also just happens to be a few hours away from us, so we spend a lot of time in that area. And there's a lot of people that have been part of the grassroots of that before Lifetime that we know and we've talked with, and that you know, I think again, it's about telling the whole story of, you know, Unbound was amazing before Lifetime took it over.
Right.
And it was one of those things. And when we had Bobby on, and he talked about, just the adventure side of it. It wasn't a race.
Yeah.
And I think that doesn't make it good or bad today versus then, or the evolution of it. It's just different. And I think for us to create content is like, hey, keep it all in perspective. But also it's our biggest race of the year.
Yeah.
And so we're fortunate to have been able to get into it each of the last few years, and yet again this year. So guess what? Yeah, there's going to be content on it, but we have content on open range too.
Yep.
Go engage on that. You can hear all about it.
Yeah.
So, and
I think the thing is I like Unbound for its the fact that like you can, kind of see the pros and your heroes and the people that you hear about and all these. It's a festival, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
great
like
time.
going to your favorite rock concert,
right.
like you're just like, oh my gosh, Metallica. Like it's like that. It's just you see people in the industry that you see on YouTube,
Yeah.
you see your favorite YouTube creators that are there that are going to it. So that's, I look at it as like, it's just, it's one of those things like, I'm so close, I might as well go to it as many times as I can just to live it up. Whereas like a race like open range, I have a lot more fun at.
Yeah.
Like I think it's so much of a funner race. It's
Yeah.
more adventure, and I can't wait to do Bobby's cue card race where we just read the cue cards and try to find our way.
I'm still trying to settle which one I'm going to do.
Yeah, but I'm so pumped for that, for just taking it back old school before. Like, I mean, I'm old enough to remember not having a GPS or a phone or anything like that. So like, just going off of like just the map and the direction and just seeing where the heck you're going. I think that's just, it's going to be so much fun.
It's not a matter of if you get lost; it's when you get lost.
Yeah, it's when you get lost,
and then back. Yeah.
I was talking to, who was I talking? I was talking to one of our friends about it, and they were just like, well, what are you going to do? How are you going to approach it? And I was like, well, basically, I'm just going to follow with whoever has, the most confidence until they get us lost. And then they're no longer the leader. You're out.
You're voted off.
You're voted off the
Yeah.
island. You're
Yeah.
at the back of the bus now. So
Yeah.
you don't get to tell us where to go anymore.
Yeah.
And so like, it's basically like going to be like that. If I'm in a group, I'm going to be, going with whoever has the highest confidence that we're going down the right road.
I mean, that's what you got to do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you'll find yourself, you'll be the one. Everybody else will be looking to.
Chances are I'm usually that guy.
Well, yeah. If nothing, I bet you're probably the first guy because everyone's going to want to draft off of you. So,
Yeah. They'll be
burn
like,
you
well,
up.
we're going to go left, but follow that guy. Yeah. So.
All right. So here's a question for you. So for especially the triathlete side, so if some of these triathlete influencers and content creators, if they weren't getting paid, do you think they'd still be racing, riding, training at the levels they are, or do you think they're motivated by the dollar?
Well, I think for the high level athletes, they're going to race no matter what. I think
the pros for sure.
Yeah, I think
they were doing it before the sponsorships were there.
before YouTube was cool.
Yeah.
And the Instagram and stuff. But I think there's some influencers and stuff that you kind of like get trapped into what you're doing.
So I don't want to name names because it's just not part of what we're doing right now. But there's a certain influencer that you and I both have followed for a few years now, and one of us had the fortune of meeting this influencer at Unbound, and the other one did not get to meet the influencer because he was off looking for a bathroom and couldn't find one. So not only did he not meet the influencer, but he also did not find the bathroom, and it was a bit of a miserable.
It was a horrible
afternoon.
day for me for sure.
Yeah, but so do you think somebody like that is motivated by the dollar? Do you think that person would be training as hard as they are right now?
So I think yes, I think he is definitely, that influencer is motivated by the dollar to, but again, he's good, the person that we're talking about, but he's not pro level good.
Yeah.
And so he has to make money on content.
Yeah.
And so that's
to sustain the lifestyle.
To sustain the lifestyle.
So that's what's interesting. It's like, it's like, so here's the thing I found. This goes across just about any industry, and This is not specific to gravel cycling, triathlon, anything like that. But when people's livelihood is tied to something, it's amazing how they will contort themselves to do whatever it takes to make the buck so that they can sustain their livelihood. And whatever comforts they have, they don't want to release. And that happens. That can be a very good thing and a highly motivating factor. And it could also be a very bad thing where people get sort of caught up in the fact that I can't lose what I have. So I'll do whatever it takes to keep it. And then next thing you know, they sort of sold their soul to the devil, if you will.
Yep.
And that happens in a lot of industries, not just in this type of stuff.
Yeah, and I think what happened, to this creator too, is that he had some success with some of these, really good videos, and he got into the Lifetime Grand Prix as a social media person, and he was trying to race it instead of tell the story.
Yeah.
And he was more worried about his finishes than he was about telling the story. And the whole reason I started following him and I liked him was because of the storytelling.
Right.
And he is a phenomenal storyteller.
Oh yeah. And again, talk about, and early on, again, this is why the content was focused on the hard work it took to get there.
Yeah.
Like gut wrenching amount of work and time away from family and it's all the sacrifices that have to be made. And it's like, so basically it's like, yeah, you want to be that good? Guess what you're having to sign up for?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway.
And then now he's stuck just doing clickbaity stuff. He's like how to make sure your, handlebars are turned in the right way. What is it? Your saddle height's too high or just a lot of that kind of stuff. And, it's just one of those things that you're just like, oh man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think what happens too is you get kind of pigeonholed into the game, right?
Yeah.
And so I hope it doesn't happen to us. I like I said, I just want us to be a beacon of information and hopefully make some people laugh and all that other stuff of just what's going on here in the local 4-state area.
Yeah.
So
yeah. All right, so one more here. We have to find a positive one here, but so this one's around. They're all Debbie Downers here. So does social media does it ruin the mental health of amateur athletes?
No, I think they're better prepared for it now.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, my kids and stuff.
Yeah.
I'll send them. I think the social media that my kids consume is I'll use hockey as example.
Yeah.
It's how to do the toe drag and how to do crossovers and it's all about what to do when you're on a 2v1 break, you got a 2v1 situation and who should you cover. It's all learning and informational. They're not I'm sure, I mean that's what I see. I'm sure there's other stuff that they're watching the bikini ladies and stuff trying to sell you some kind of, soap, whatever, smell like a Sasquatch and you'll be the hottest thing out there. So,
yeah. Well, so on the rapid fire, one more question on the positive side.
Yeah.
What is the best piece of advice you've learned from a social media post influencer? What's the best piece of advice you've ever picked up that you didn't know before you heard it?
Oh man, that I didn't know. Gosh, I don't. That's hard because my brain does not work that well. I mean, I just think I think what comes to mind is just when I first heard Goggins just talk about how he doesn't want to get up and run, but he just runs, and I was like, yeah, dude, I get that, and it's just
don't want to do it.
You don't want to do it. There's a lot of times I don't want to ride or I don't want to swim or I don't want to, but you just get in the pool and you do it, or you get on the bike and you do it, and then
it reminds me of Joe Rogan. He on his podcast a couple of weeks back said something somebody asked him how do you do your cold plunge in 34-degree water?
Yeah.
He's like, I just tell my inner bitch to just shut up and I just do it.
Exactly. You just do it.
It doesn't suck any less. You just go do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think hearing that kind of stuff, it is hard for these people that we put on a pedestal. It's hard for them and it's hard for us too. So it's we're all human. It's all hard.
Yeah.
You just, whether or not you win that inner voice battle of, doing it or not doing it, that's
Yeah.
I think hearing that is like, that's the biggest thing when I
Yeah.
started hearing people like struggle as much as I have.
I think that's that's kind of how I was going to answer it too. Like if I were asking myself that question, I would answer as, so when you first start out, like you recognize the gains come on quickly because you're trying something new and you're on that sort of, accelerated part of the curve. But as you reach sort of that natural point, like you start to plateau and like, man, this stuff feels really hard. When's it going to start feeling easy? And it never feels easy. Like that's the thing. Like you just figure out how to suffer more. And I shouldn't even say suffer, but like you figure out how to push harder. You figure out how to tolerate, more intense effort, and your body adapts, and it never gets easy. And that's like, I think that's the thing that I struggled with in the first couple years after, getting into road cycling and then eventually into gravel, was we'd go out on rides and other people in the ride, it just didn't look like it hurt them as much. And it's like, that's really demoralizing. But then eventually you find out, like a good example would be last year at, which one was it we did in the fall? Bad Astra.
Yeah.
When we did Bad Astra and I looked around and I knew how much I was hurting, and I wasn't hurting as bad as the people around me.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, like, it never stops hurting.
No.
You just outlast the person next to you. And that's when like the improvement is real.
Yep.
And I think so it's hard because you like, again, you start comparing yourself to the things that you see online, and you mentioned Strava, and you mentioned, the different Instagram things and YouTube. And it's like, they leave out the fact that it always hurts.
Yeah.
It always hurts when you push a hard effort. And so, yeah, you just figure out how to outlast the person next to you, and eventually there's nobody else around you. And then that means it's worked.
Yep.
So
it means it was, unless you're like leagues and leagues ahead of everybody at the race, and it's like a race that nobody shows up to, and like, then maybe you're the best one out there. But when you're around people that are your skill level or above, like, it is about just see who can suffer the longest. Because then that's why I made the point last week of saying that, like, that half marathon hurt from mile 1 to mile 13. Like, it hurt. It was the same level of hurt the whole
way. Yeah.
It did not, it wasn't like I was like, oh, this will feel good. It was like, no, just keep pushing into tolerable pain.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, just hold the like, if there was a pain meter, it would have just been flat, because that's where I was until the end.
Yeah.
And I pushed as much as I could.
Yeah.
But it was like, it never got easier. It never got better. It never felt amazing. It just felt like I was working.
And now I think I see why all these influencers don't tell that side of the story, because you don't make it sound very enjoyable.
Yeah.
What was it when we crossed the finish line and my wife was like, yeah, I don't really think I ever want to do this. Like, nobody looked like they had fun. No, the fun is later.
No, the fun's later. Yeah. But yeah, I was talking to Josh Wolf, and and I was like, oh, you ride gravel, like, come up and ride, the hills and stuff with me. You'll like it. And like, suffering for like 6 hours, he's like,
what is wrong with you?
He's like, no. And this is a guy that, like, he qualified for Kona a couple of times. He's gone to Kona. He's a strong athlete, but he's like, I don't know what's wrong with you guys.
Yeah,
like,
you get something. Yeah.
He's like, I don't know about the Scrabble thing. And I'm like, you'll like it.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, some people like it. Like, again, I think being drawn to, again, Goggins isn't for everybody. Lionel Sanders isn't for everybody. Yeah. Sam Long, Tadej Pogačar is not for everybody. Like, these guys that are influencers and, people that we follow and the people that we kind of like look up to as inspiration, they're different.
They are different.
And so it just, but you can take little pieces of what they say and you can add them to your life, and just understand that, when they talk about how hard this stuff is, like, again, it's hard. It's not easy.
No.
It's not, if it was easy, like, everybody would be doing it, right?
True story.
So, yeah.
Yeah, good stuff, man. Well, anything else for this week?
No, I think that's about it.
Nice.
I think that's good. It's going to be a little social media one. Again, if you made it this far, please, we have to do it. You got to do it. Got to get the likes. Got to get the engagement.
We got to work on our engagement farming. I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna tell you the next week we're gonna have the 5 tips to improve your FTP and your run pace all in one. 5 of these tips. Just
are they the same 5 tips? Just
they're
repeated?
exactly the same 5 tips.
Yeah.
So
in the first
eat,
one,
sleep, train, consistency, and then do hard things.
Yeah. So now what are we going to talk about next week?
Yeah. But I'm going to go more, go more in depth. No, it's just, like I said, guys, just, please leave us a like, leave us a follow, interact with the video. If you want to email us questions or anything, please follow the links. It's all out there. Share with your friends. Again, it just gets more people engaged in this stuff. And like I said, we understand that we have to play the social media game too. We just want to, we want to be that place where people can come and find out about what's going on in the local area here in Kansas City, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, and just be that bastion of hope for the four state area. So
sounds good.
All right, man. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Please, if you like what we are doing here, leave a like, rate us, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. It really helps us grow and finds us more SufferSooner squad mates. And remember, when the finish line feels impossibly far away, we don't give up, we push harder, we dig deeper, and we find solace in the knowledge that our suffering is temporary and our resilience is forever.